Good morning. Welcome to the Incarceration Prevention Reduction Task Force Legal and Justice Systems Committee. I'm going to begin with the land acknowledgement statement. Jill, I had it in front of me, but if you can scroll for me down a little bit. Thank you. Land acknowledgement statement. Before we begin, we acknowledge that we are gathered on the traditional and unceded territory of the Lummi, Nooksack, Samish, and Semiahmoo people who have cared for and tended this land since time immemorial. Truth and acknowledgement are critical to building mutual respect and connection across all barriers of heritage and difference. We begin this effort to acknowledge what has been buried by honoring the truth. We pay respect to their elders, past and present. Please take a moment to consider the many legacies of violence, displacement, migration, and settlement that bring us together here today. And please join us in uncovering such truths at any and all public events. So thank you all of you for joining. It is October 8th, 2024, and it is 11:31. So one of the topics that was on the agenda was case processing, timeliness, and effectiveness and efficiencies. So Jake is here with District Court, and Maya was gracious enough. She's looking at me funny now because she's afraid that I'm going to bring something up that's not right. But she coordinated a meeting with a lot of different members in Superior Court a couple weeks ago to discuss some of the struggles that we're having in Superior Court. And one of the things has to do with hearings that are in the jail. And it impacts a lot of us. And, you know, we all want to start on time. We all want to be done on time. I noticed even yesterday, I was talking to Stephanie Kraft this morning, administrator with Superior Court, who's also on this meeting, is that, you know, we have my criminal clerk that was here this morning. It came into the office at 7 a.m., didn't leave last night until 7 p.m. And one of the lower paid positions in the county, a stressful job, hard job, and then they end their day in the jail and they can't leave until the cases are all heard and they're done. There's struggles finding interpreters for these hearings. We try to find in-person interpreters, but I'm sure Jake can chime in on this as well, is sometimes we're all fighting for the same interpreter, whether it's a municipal court with Bellingham or Everson, Sumas, Blaine, Linden, or district court, or it's a trial proceeding. Sometimes the interpreters that we're looking for in Spanish are down in Skagit County, and they're going from place to place to place. And then trying to schedule those interpreters is really difficult. And then when we get into the jail, the technology isn't the best to trying to use interpreters over the phone. We have to make sure we have adequate recording systems. The Zoom capabilities don't necessarily work the best in the jail. So you're struggling with meeting with the interpreters, meeting with the public defense attorneys before the court starts. They need to meet with their clients, but then you have overlap sometimes from Bellingham. The jail staff has struggles with transport, making sure that they're getting everybody where they need to be, if they have enough deputies to be able to transport. I know some of these things a lot of us have heard over and over again, but reality is we don't have enough staff, we don't have enough time, we don't have enough money, and we don't have enough courtrooms. The courtrooms for Superior Court are all being used, every single one of them. And then you have one courtroom for all the municipalities in custody, and district court, and Bellingham is the biggest city. And so they all have to hear these people that are being booked into jail and for their first appearances and you know, sometimes their arraignments. So this is an ongoing struggle, and I want to bring it up to everybody's attention, because as we're looking at a new jail, we have to make sure there's adequate courtrooms. and people to do what needs to be done. And even as we're looking at that new jail, we're dealing with the struggles currently, day-to-day operations. And I don't have a solution, a magic wand. I wish I did, but we are at capacity with some of our courtrooms. So I'm going to open this up to Jake and Stephanie and Tammy and Maya, anybody else that has an opinion on other options and ideas, because I can't keep my staff here 12-hour shifts. I'm losing people. Comments?
Well, yes to all of that, and I'm just trying to come up with small ideas here and there where I can. I know, like, yesterday's first appearances went late. It was really difficult. There was the interpreter situation just made things harder. We had to use language line, and it took an hour to review the paperwork and then like 40 minutes on the record, I think.
Mhm.
And this was a pro tem commissioner, so it's not one of the commissioners who's maybe a little bit more efficient in language and speed. So that, I think, also complicated matters. So, but no, I mean, our staff doesn't want to be there till 6:45 at night either. And I know then your clerks have to stay even longer. I did send an email to Eric Sigmar and the commissioners this morning suggesting modification of some of the paperwork that we do. Like, maybe we can streamline some of it. And Eric Sigmar and I had a discussion about this back in July of 2023, but we couldn't come to any agreement about it. But I'm raising it again because I think maybe there's a verbal record being made by the judge in the court that could eliminate some of the paperwork we have to review. So I'm just little things we can do to try to, like, be more concise, be more efficient. We'll see what comes of that. I don't know if anything will. I think Eric felt like his appellate division had objection to eliminating some of the paperwork, but I think it's up to the judges to decide that. Yeah, we'll just try to continue to find ways to be more efficient is my best suggestion right now.
So I see David Graham on, and he was also there last night until 7. And I know that everybody was working really hard to get things done, but I want to see if he has any thoughts on, because he's been there a lot doing these late afternoon hearings.
Yeah, thank you, Raylene. Yeah, I've been doing this full time for about 2.5 years. So I'm over at the jail, or also when we did them in the courtroom. These last few months, especially since we moved to jail, have been the longest I've ever seen. And it's kind of though the same 3 issues that, I mean, we talked about in our meeting. I remember bringing it up in a judicial roundtable a couple years ago. First one, on Mondays and Tuesdays, district court goes over because they add cases that are not new arrests. And I know it's a district court issue. I'm hoping at some point someone can talk to district court and figure out a way to do it. It's like they should only have new arrests on. They shouldn't be put in their omnibus or status. Because again, yesterday we started about 3:20, 3:30 because that's when they finished. So right away, we're half an hour into our calendar and not even starting. Second problem, as Raylene very articulately said, we're in problems with interpreters. That's been the same issue before. Used to be when we did have in-person interpreters, they would show up at 3, which would set us back because they still have to meet with their client and the public defender. Doing it by phone is just, I mean, I know it's our only option, but yeah, it just adds so much time. And the recording's bad. We gotta walk up there. And then third is just, and I know the jail and the PD has been working really hard on it, is just the liaison, like when can the PDs meet with their clients, when the jail can bring them over. It seems like there's always an issue. Either the PDs are ready and the jail, unfortunately, because other courtrooms isn't ready, or the jail says, hey, we're ready, but the PDs didn't come over to this, this amount of time. And then I guess I would say the fourth thing, which is just horrible, is the viewing room is just, we were using like, I'd say 1990 technology now, and we're kind of going backwards. You never can hear the people. There are always problems with mic. It always slows things down. I feel sorry for both the victims and the families because we're frustrated because we can't hear them. So we ask them to repeat stuff. tell them to step forward, back from the mic. Again, I guess it's an issue, you know, we need a better viewing room if we're going to continue doing our hearings in the jail. But like I said, since we moved on to the jail, we've added, I would say on our major calendars, 15 to 20 minutes with no hiccups, like it just goes longer. And then we have the hiccups of like an interpreter. I saw Maya's suggestions about the paperwork. You know, I don't know if that, I mean, maybe it can knock a minute or two each case, but it's, you know, that's usually the quickest part. It's when the judge says, you know, find PC, do all this.
But it's also
right.
us having to go through those forms. If we
And I
didn't
apologize,
go
yeah.
through those forms, it would eliminate prep time and be
Prep time,
far
yes.
more efficient.
Yeah, sorry, I was just thinking court time, but you're right. Totally forgot about that because I'm not involved in that. But yeah, but those are just kind of the comments I made. Like I said, I've been doing this. I'm doing first appearances for years, way too long, but I've been doing them full time for the last 2.5 years. And yeah, this is the worst it's been.
Thank you. And I kind of feel bad. I got Jake here on the spot from district court, but you know, he's here, so maybe he has some words of wisdom or thoughts.
I mean, I could certainly look into if there's more than just first appearances on those calendars. It sounds like maybe there's omnis that are set on there as well. Is that what I'm hearing? So I don't know if the issue, I mean, I'll look into it. I don't know if the issue is because we can't have them brought over for those. So we have to have them heard at some point, or if they can be heard on like a Wednesday, I don't know, on a different day. But I can certainly look into that. I mean,
And Jake, I don't mean to,
yeah.
I don't mean to cut you off, Jake, but if you ever have time, Ryan Swinburne, who's the conflict attorney,
Mhm.
I can come tell you he's pretty in tune to this as well, and we can just let you know what we've seen,
Sure.
kind of what the issue is. Because I know Ryan sent some memos to, I think, the court, Superior Court before, outline here's what the issue is. And again, we don't want to tell
Okay.
you know anyone what to do, but we can at least tell you what the issue is, and you can, you know, streamline it sometime if you're available.
Yeah, no, yeah, I haven't seen that. So that would be,
Okay.
that'd be very helpful to know.
Okay, perfect. I'll talk to Ryan today and we'll get back to you. Thanks, Jake.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks, Dave. And I see Heather Flaherty's hand.
Good morning. Can you hear me okay, Raylene?
Yes.
I joined 2 minutes late, but I just want to make sure I understand. The pain point that I'm hearing is first appearance calendars are going too long.
Yes.
Is that what I'm hearing? And is it for both district court and superior court?
Yes.
Okay. And I'm curious if there's a reason, are there more arrests and more people to process than there have been historically?
So to give you an idea on that, Heather, this just statistics will give you just a little bit of an outline. So the number of assigned counsel cases, basically what's screening from for public defense, people asking for attorneys. In 2018, there were 83 screenings. 2019, 184. 2020, 476. 2021, 529. I'm going to jump all the way to 2023 for a total of 639. And up until recently, my assigned counsel clerk was also doing protection orders, interpreters, fee waivers, so multiple other jobs. That when I talked to her the other day, I said, so how many people in that office were there when you started? And she said there was 2.5 clerks. And now there's one. It's split between 2 people. We just took the translators and we were able to move that upstairs. I could go through the numbers for protection orders, which is 300% increased with less staffing. And so this is basically across the board for, I can go to each different area, but that just kind of shows you a little tiny picture of our staff is trying to do stuff, and now Stephanie's got the interpreters and she's trying to do that, and she's trying to figure out what the struggles are. And so with the interpreters, it's not just more defendants, it's also more defendants with indigenous languages. Languages where we need relay interpreters. We can't find the interpreters. We're needing the technology, and we don't have the technology that's needed, because, as very well pointed out by Prosecutor Graham, is that it's a system that was put in place in maybe the 80s. It could be. I mean, he said 90s, but I think he's being generous. And you got people that were like, step closer to the mic, talk louder. No, step back from the mic. No, we need you to speak more clearly. And, you know, and it's being held together with duct tape and wires. And we need something to fix the system yesterday. And we're trying to figure out how to do this with less money, less staff, and more defendants with more challenges. Because we've ran out of space, we've ran out of staff, we ran out of money.
And Heather, into your direct question, I can probably look into our 3 o'clock in custody calendar. I mean, I haven't really seen a dramatic increase since I've been doing it the last 2.5 years. I can look back and I can ask Eric and a couple other folks. I do agree with Raylene about, I have seen more diverse interpreter needs recently. The Mixteca is a huge one we have a tough time getting. There's a couple others that are really, really tough. I know we've been struggling to get. So yeah, I would say we have a more diverse and more serious also clientele inside the jail, because we're not booking, you know, your forgeries, your theft twos. Those appearances go really quick. But assault 2, domestic violence, you have protection orders, you have weapon surrenders. So you know, maybe our numbers haven't gone up. The seriousness of the crimes that we're seeing has gone up.
Marilyn, are you wanting opinions and perspective and ideas in this moment?
I'm looking for solutions.
Okay.
I can't, I mean, I know Maya has struggles. I know Stephanie has struggles. I mean, all of us are trying to figure out what's a better way
Yeah.
to do things. And, you know, I know that from the clerk's part, we need to make sure that what we're doing is getting into the system. We need to make sure that those no contact orders are getting to law enforcement right away. And the firearm surrender stuff, that has to go to different places. So there's all of these little extra duties that have to happen in a timely manner. And you have to train the people to do that. And when you're burning them out and you're going through staff on a regular basis, and then, you know, Maya has to reassign cases when she loses public defenders. That puts a delay in the cases. When there's prosecutors that leave, they're reassigning those cases. So it's a very systemic issue. And I think, you know, we've got a really good group here that wants to make things work better, but I don't know what the options are. The other thing I want to bring this to the attention is, like I said, we're building a new jail, and I know the public wants re-entry, they want treatment, they want all these medical services. But if we also don't look at, when this is put together, that we have adequate courtroom space, staffing, places to meet with the defendants, the technology for the interpreters for the different languages, then the system's not going to work when we move forward to something new.
I appreciate all of that. And I guess I always know I have blind spots and I don't know what I don't know. But the easiest things I feel like should be, can we please get a new viewing room? Because that's like, who's in charge of where that viewing room, and can we buy the technology? Who's in charge of that? And can we, as a task force, make that recommendation? If you have the top interpretation needs, is there some way that we can make a recommendation that there's a lean process, that person is always available on Mondays and Tuesdays, and you're not having to search for the top 3 interpretation needs? And And is it possible to schedule the first appearances earlier so the clerks aren't waiting till 3 and later to have to process all the paperwork? Like, those are questions that I would want to understand more. And I think too, a big issue is if the process is not going well, and if the staff are burnt out, I also worry about the outcomes for the defendants. And there are lean manufacturing type consultants that could come in and look at an entire process from A to Z and help lean out, or, you know, say like, hey, if we know 8 hours in advance that we need this person, an interpreter for them, then we can make the call much earlier. So I would love to recommend that for this system, like an actual consultant to come in and look at process. And very much hear you on the jail. I worry about the design happening without the community input, so I want to make sure those linkages are there appropriately. And then the other thing too is, like, in these kinds of situations, if demand is higher than what our teams can serve, well, can we look at reducing the supply side? Can we, like, where are the more diversion opportunities, or get, you know, it's just, I worry that we're continuing to go status quo, that the criminal justice system is just the system that we default people to. And, like, where is the space where we imagine, where can we get those people out in the first place? But I hear you saying that it's all serious crimes in there, but even so, it's like, where is that prevention piece with domestic violence, with DUIs, with, you know, assaults? Where are we? And so maybe that's just philosophical, but it's important. So thanks for the opportunity to weigh in. And if there's any way I can help, I mean, Peter and I would love to put this in an advocacy agenda, I'm certain. Like, what are the resources that you need to help? And how can we put that to council or whoever gets to make those decisions on money and process?
So I just want to give you a little bit of response, but I want to go to Maya and Tank as well, because I see both of their hands up. On the interpreter function, you know, Stephanie and I have been working together since, I think, day one on solutions. So there was a request to hire somebody to interpret and through the administration to interpret as well as scheduling. And then that position was frozen. So it wasn't, and then they reposted it, but no applicants came forward. And so now she's working on trying to post that. But I mean, just the two of us talking, it needs to be just a one-time permanent position, because the struggle is real trying to find interpreters. On the technology side, yeah, I'm all about that. And I think Stephanie is working with Perry with IT. I think there was a request that was submitted, but that's for next year. We're looking at something for right now. I'm going to jump to Maya and then Tank, and I'm sure Stephanie will probably want to weigh in on some stuff as well.
Yeah, the problem solving meeting we had last week, was it? I don't know. I think was really good. And I think that having the stakeholders meet and discuss the obstacles we have is, I mean, it was a needed conversation, and I think things will come out of that. So I'd like to see what happens there. I mean, Heather, the changes of the last few years, just what came out of COVID, have been tremendous with the way that court is conducted for first appearances. I mean, when I used to do first appearances, I would walk in, the jail had everybody who had court that day in the courtroom. I would talk to them as a group, pull them individually. It went really quickly. The jail cannot do that kind of group, everybody in the courtroom at the same time anymore. It's just, it is not safe, and they will not do it. And so, and there are constantly crazy things going on with that facility. Like one day, a couple weeks ago, we just got a notice, jail's shut down, nobody's in or out, nobody's moving. And so it's like, we couldn't even go over to prepare because all the locks opened internally, and like everybody was popped out who wasn't supposed to be popped out, and it took hours for them to fix it. And it's like, so there's like crazy things happening like that all the time, elevators, you name it. And then just the understaffing. Oh, you can't, you want to come over at 1 o'clock to see your clients? We can't accommodate you. We can't bring you anyone to talk to. Maybe at 2. Well, maybe at 2:30. Why don't you come over in the morning? Oh, we're in court all morning, you know. And I had a conversation with Judge Grockmall the other day after court where she was like, could we move the first appearance calendar to mornings and move municipal court to the afternoons? Well, we still have to prepare. We still have to get all the paperwork. Our office has to process it, put it into we have to get the PCs from the prosecutors. We have to then have time to meet with our clients. And we're scheduled in Superior Court for 3-4 mornings every week. Like, we can't be in 2 places at once. If we don't have a staff member or an attorney who just does first appearances like Dave Graham does, we don't have the capacity to give somebody just to go do first appearances every day. We really have to rotate it. Because we need those people to carry caseload too. So I think that the meeting a couple weeks ago is good. We need to keep up the dialogue. We need to keep chiseling away and finding small things that we can do, because I don't think there is a big solution. Like, I think getting a new viewing room is a lovely thought, but I don't know where the funding for that's going to happen or how that would. I mean, maybe there's some better technology that could be implemented to improve that. That would be like a small fix. Yes, things are very different than they were 5 years ago. I think it is not possible to compare. And Dave's been doing this for a long time, and he'll look back and be like, I don't know, things are very different than they were 5 years ago. They're never going to be like they were. Thanks.
Thank you, Maya. Tank and then Stephen Gockley.
Yeah, so I do have a really bad cold, so my words are going to be limited. But I'm hearing a lot of different pain points from different angles, and I guess what I would like to see and how we get that information is just perhaps maybe all the different concerns we could have in one document. And I would start, really trying to, because I've been up to first appearances a couple of times, but just because what I saw one day doesn't mean that that's the way it is the week after and the week before. So, but I would also like to see if we could do like a flow chart to see some of those things that Heather was talking about, those gaps. So I know that's more work for this committee, but maybe if we could put these things together in one document with all the different concerns, perhaps maybe we could all take a look at it and really try to figure this out.
Thank you, Sheriff Tanksley. Stephen Gockley.
I don't have a background that helps me to understand all of this, but I appreciate how many conversations have been going on with this and how long they've been going on. I take at face value Maya's suggestion that there isn't a big answer, that there are going to be a lot of tweaks that need to be done. I think Tank's analysis is a good start. I would say to Peter and Heather, this is not something that you develop an advocacy agenda for. I would like to push us to, within this committee where we have people who know these problems and have had conversations already, to please give us 4, 5, 6 recommendations that we can vote on and move up the ladder to the task force and gather the weight and the credibility of the task force to make requests for near-term kinds of improvements. I'm really frustrated that a lot of this seems to be being held up by, we don't have enough money to get technology, to employ interpreters to the extent we need them. we need an urgent supplemental budget request, and it's up to the county council to say, no, we can't do that. It's not for us to self-censor ourselves in the scope of the remedies that we're suggesting. So I'd really like to see, Raylene, you pull together a couple of people offline and develop those proposals, and that we act on them next meeting and start moving them up the line with the credibility that the task force as a whole has created over a number of years. These can't wait for the next budget cycle. They can't wait for some of us who don't know what we're talking about with this to evaluate flowcharts and stuff like that. I think the people who know what these problems are have talked about solutions. We may not have unanimity on those recommendations when they're put in front of us, and I don't think we should limit ourselves to that. Normally we operate by consensus, but the urgency here may be something where the PD doesn't like a certain idea as the ideal, but we need to go along with it. Same for the prosecutor, same for district court. I mean, it may not be the ideal, but it could be pieces that move us forward a little bit. So I'm sorry to go on so long.
Comments are appreciated, Stephen. Heather.
I just, for clarification, Stephen, when I said advocacy agenda, you explained exactly what I meant. Thank you for articulating those steps. I would picture recommendations and then taking it to get the money that is needed for those recommendations is what I imagined. I do think, though, that in parallel, having a flow chart to look at process could also be helpful, just to see, are there things that can make this more human-centered and more efficient along the way. So thank you.
Thank you, Heather. Peter?
Building on Stephen and Heather's comments, Raylene, what do you need? What support do you need to do what Stephen was suggesting? Is there something some resource that you need someone to partner with to put together this list of recommendations, issues and recommendations?
Well, I think when the meeting that we had with Maya and a pretty good group from criminal justice a couple weeks ago, I think was beneficial in that we were all trying to come up with different ideas, and we did kind of nail some of the main issues today, and a lot of this stuff, unfortunately for Stephanie, lands in her lap. Because some of those resources and tools are things that, she's struggling to get the money from and to get these things to happen. And, she's working really hard at it. So I'm going to let her chime in just a little bit, because I think supporting her in like the technology and the funding, I think would be beneficial, but that's my perspective.
So we've had an ongoing discussion with IT about getting Zoom set up for the jail courtroom, which would also address the issues with the viewing room. And it would allow victims and defendants' families to not necessarily be in the viewing room together, which I think would be beneficial, because so far we have not had any issues, but you could have an issue with that. There is a budget ask in the 25 budget. I have been pushing to move it up because we have to have a solution to, at least, I know Zoom's not necessarily pie in the sky answer, but it would get us a lot more flexibility. It would also allow us to use, the jail has said they have some tablets that we could use that might help with the interpreter, like being able to take the interpreter, talk with the defendant, come back to the courtroom, and some of the breakout room stuff. Honestly, it's the financial piece of paying for it, but also having IT has to have the staff to support it. And with all the other asks going on in the county and all the other moving parts for courtrooms. So we not only need financial resources for the program, but we also need to have resources to make all these dominoes happen. So they're also working on, like, they're still completing the work on Judge Anderson's courtroom. So district court is using 4C, which Superior Court uses. And then there's a plan to work on make 513 a formal courtroom, which means that'll be offline. So there's all these pieces where one thing has to happen before the next thing can happen. And ITs and facilities are working on those. So adding another one where they're already under-resourced further complicates kind of how quickly something can roll out. So I have not been able to connect with Perry today. I did call him first thing this morning when I found out about first appearances, because we have to be able to, it seems like Zoom would be something that would be more easily attainable, kind of as a maybe middle ground fix, knowing that it's not going to solve everything for the jail courtroom. But it's not just looking at like the first appearance issues. It's kind of this bigger systematic challenge at kind of collectively.
Dave?
Yes, I just had a question more to Stephanie. So 5B, where we used to hold the first appearances, was set up good for the victims, good for the jail viewing. It didn't have the Zoom capacity with someone else coming in. We did everything by phone. Has there been any discussions about, would it be easier to have another courtroom? So whatever's going on in 5B now, move to that courtroom, and then 5B is already hooked up for majority of this stuff. Though again, outside Zoom it isn't, but it, has all the victims there, has the capability of, the technology is so much better than the viewing room. Has there been any look into that? I'm just saying we do have a courtroom set up for basically everything now, but I know it's because of the limited courtrooms, it's being used for something else. So I'm just curious if that's been discussed at all.
It hasn't been discussed as an option because it's really not an option until we've finished. District courts finished their work, 513's been finished, and they build a new Superior Court courtroom. So you're looking at a number of years down the road, which is not helpful in the immediate.
Perfect. Thank you. I was just curious. Thanks.
Birdie.
Yeah, I'm getting a little bit in the weeds and I don't want to take too much time, but trying to, like Heather, wrap my mind around the bigger picture. Why is that courtroom not available until the whole sequence of other things happen? I think I'm kind of coming from the outside, which can get me in trouble because I don't know all the details that you folks work with. But on the other hand, it seems like if there's an urgent need, sometimes it calls for sort of an urgent anomaly to allow the rest of the process go on. And so that's my question. And I'm just curious.
So right now we have 5 judges and 4 courtrooms. So we have 2 judges sharing a courtroom. So we're short there. And then in order to work on any of the courtrooms, you have to move all the hearings from them into another court space.
Yeah.
So we just end up where there is no other space to hold court.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm
You're
sure
welcome.
it's a good reason, but at the same time, it must be difficult for you all in the system.
Just to shine a little bit of light here, we are like currently in the process of hooking the cameras back up in Judge Anderson's courtroom, and then Stephanie, you will be having that courtroom back. So I think we're a little bit on Jav's timeline to get that done this week, but it's looking, we got chairs, we got tables, we got bodies in there, well, workers. And so we're getting close. I don't want to say a date because I've been guilty of that before, but very close. So.
And it's there's always something. I mean, last week, as a lot of us ended up dealing with a water line that got cut and broke and flooded a couple courtrooms. So it was a mad dash to figure out where we were moving people and what we could do and what we couldn't do and who was on what and what was on first. And yeah, I've totally screwed that one up. But, it's always a challenge. There's always something new. And the good thing is we all want to come up with a common goal to actually move things forward. But there's always something that throws a little bit of a monkey wrench in it, and we see what we can do to make it better. I can come up with a list. I think Stephanie is spot on with if we can improve some of the technology that might help. And so helping her with that, but Perry and his IT staff are incredible. And they're also working on moving their office out so we can build a 5th courtroom. Something else that came up was the moving to other courtrooms. And I was just thinking, right now the protection orders, the law changed. I want to say it was 2021, but everything went into effect more full-time in the beginning of 2023. And so we have all these people coming into Superior Court now filing protection orders or trying to petition the court for a protection order. And we're supposed to get those hearings within 14 days of their petition. And we don't have enough commissioners and we don't have enough courtrooms to do that. And then if you throw a holiday in there, that even backlogs that even further. And I'm just amazed how many more protection orders are coming through the court. And the numbers on that, I'm not going to go into, but it's incredible that we're trying to keep up with that as well. So as we're seeing the laws change, that also puts a strain on the court system of where we're going to stick everybody. And I want to say Stephanie told me not too long ago that, the commissioner, we've got pro tem commissioners that we have issues with. And then just to open up that we're also worried about the caseload standards coming up with public defense. And are we going to have enough public defenders? And we're going to find out the answer on that by the end of this month when the Supreme Court votes. So, like I said, we might be able to fix one of these, but
I think it'll be more like December, just FYI.
Oh, good.
They aren't deciding anything before December.
Before December.
Supreme Court.
Okay. Public comment is until the end of the month though. Is that right? So lots of things to think about. I can put it in writing and then submit it to the committee for further discussion. I'm happy to do that. But I want to say that Tank was going to talk a little bit about reentry, and Jake, did you have any more to add on this topic?
The only thing that just came to my mind is I am involved in an email actually just this morning with some removal of some courtroom equipment from alts. And I'm wondering if some of that is in better shape or is maybe updated from the stuff we have in the other, that instead of just removing it, that can maybe replace or improve our current situation. I don't know. I'm just reading this email from the outside, so I don't know all the details, but just putting that out there.
Thanks, Jake. We have already been looking at that. Can it supplement what's in the jail, or does it go in 4C where there's currently not JAVs?
Excellent. Tank?
Yeah, thanks again. And again, I apologize for this really bad cold that I have, and been having some coughing spells here during this meeting. But just want to briefly go over the reentry initiative 1115. It's called the demonstration waiver. And I asked Jill and staff to send out the original email that was sent from HCA back in April when they was asking different agencies and jurisdictions to participate. So we jumped on this and we were approved. When I say we, meaning the Whatcom County Sheriff's Office, but in essence, it's the Whatcom County community. We were approved for this waiver, and essentially over a 4-year period, it's $2.25 million to help improve the healthcare delivery and outcomes of individuals that are eligible for Medicaid while incarcerated. And one of the things that it does do, it does provide case management, but also it provides 90 days of treatment post-release. And it also includes 30 days of medications and medical supplies. And also, it also can pay for their lab and they have other medical issues. So it's a win-win. I've most recently asked Health and Community Service to help us, meaning the Sheriff's Office, with implementing this. We've also reached out to the, I want to get the name right. We've also reached out to the National Commission on Correctional Health Care, and that's the agency who approves our healthcare providers in terms of accreditation in the jail. We asked them to do an assessment of our facilities to see how to best implement this program and other programs that we have. So right now, we're in the first quarter, so we're still getting things together. Health and Community Services has been very helpful. So we're hoping to go live and into 2024 with this. So it takes a lot of planning and a lot of complexity to this. So yeah. Any initial questions? It's certainly more to it, but I had to just, I'm trying to keep it short, so.
Thank you, Tank.
I guess I'll share that we also applied for juvenile detention and are part of the first cohort. It's significantly less funding. We have been working a little bit with the jail kind of through the process. But we're also looking to add behavioral health and additional nursing services.
Excellent. Birdie and then Heather.
I just want to say a very quick congratulations. I think this is a really major first step. And from my medical background, it pleases me no end that we're going to be able to help those who are being discharged with their very significant medical and addiction problems. So that's really great. And please keep us posted.
Heather?
Sorry, I forgot you already called on me. I'm so excited about the reentry contract, Tank, and I'm wondering about if community groups wanted to know more or get involved. Is there an avenue for that? Or just regular updates somewhere through implementation? And super interested in how that case management will work and how it will connect externally to other groups and where gaps still may exist. And curious who your partner is in the health and community services as well.
Yeah, so we haven't posted like anything on our website yet. Certainly would love to get the word out there about it, but also, I mean, this is so significant that when you put it out there, there are more questions and we want to be able to answer those questions, and not being fully able to answer those questions. So, I mean, it's kind of twofold. We want the information out there because this is a public meeting, so it is out there. So, but also we're just trying to work through it as well. And the person that we've really connected with in health and community service is Shamika Brooks.
Thank you. Stephen and then Peter.
My questions were very similar to Heather's, so I took my hand down. But I want to say, Tank, this is significant enough that this shouldn't be just internal information. This is a celebratory thing. And I think the community deserves to know that we've made this significant resource acquisition and there's planning going on. And you can say there will be more reports to follow. And preempt questions like that. I think we need to do more communication, not less or later. And I also think the coverage issue is key, but people like Heather and I who've worked in health reform know that accessing that coverage is really the issue. So the case management, the navigation pieces are critical and need to be upfront pieces on this. So all of that's just to elaborate a little bit on Heather's points.
And also, I want to add, Heather, that we also have Vanessa Martin helping us as well.
Thank you, Stephen and Tank. Go ahead, Peter.
Congratulations, Tank. This sounds great. Two questions. So after release, who would be the providers of the healthcare? And then also, once the 2.5 million is expended, where do we go from there?
Peter always has the hard questions. So the last question is, where do we go from there? And I think where we go from there is to plan before it expires, right? You know, because they have other cohorts coming along. So they have cohort 2 and 3. And one thing that's interesting about this is that HCA really wants agencies to be successful. So although we have milestones per quarter, that if you don't meet those milestones, if you're communicating with them and explaining the situation, then you might have to go into the second cohort or the third cohort, and that's not what we intend to do. But we intend to certainly continue to look for funding through HCA, and sometimes funding is extended, and that's why it's important that we have the right players on this from the beginning. It's important that we ask the right questions. It's important that we're successful in helping people, achieve, not only the medications, but this is also to reduce the amount of recidivism and to therefore reduce the amount of people we have incarcerated. So again, so we'll just keep looking for more funding through HCA. And what was your first question?
Oh, let's see. So providers, who's providing let's see, after release, what providers would be providing this? Do we know yet?
No.
Or is that to be determined?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tank. Is there any other questions for Tank on the reentry? Congratulations again on moving forward on this, and I'm sure we'll be asking for further reports as we move forward. I think we're on to other business, and as briefly spoke about earlier, the public comment for caseload standards. I've got 2 articles sitting in front of me. I think they're both from the Yakima Herald. One of them says ACLU of Washington sues Yakima County to release inmates who can't get public defenders. And then the other one's from the Yakima Herald saying a state can no longer shirk its responsibility for public defenders. And both of them are going into detail on how difficult it is to find defense for inmates. It is a struggle here in Whatcom County. I don't know if it's to the same as Yakima, but we are definitely feeling the pinch, and we're having a hard time finding representation for all of the dependents. And I am assuming that Tammy is probably seeing some of it. I've heard it from some of the other municipal courts that when they have conflict cases and they have to find outside attorneys, it is a struggle. And so I see this is still a problem that we're going to need to take note of. Supreme Court is still taking public comment on it, so I don't want it to fall off of anybody's radar. I don't know if anybody else has any comment on that or any other business that we need to bring up before we go to public comment. Okay, so I'm going to open it up for public comment then. Jill, do we have anybody?
We do. If any of you would like to speak to the committee, please virtually raise your hand now. And no hands are raised. And Peter, is there anyone in the conference room?
I'm all by myself here.
Well, it appears I'm going to give you guys 5 minutes back of your time today. So have a great Tuesday afternoon. Thank you.